Hello, friends. The following 5 stories discuss some of the most bizarre and disturbing unsolved mysteries within our national parks and national forests. With that said, sit back, relax, and let's begin. Number 5. Man saved by owl. In November 2021, 64-year-old Mike Stevenson shared his incredible survival story and wowed the world when he revealed that an owl saved him and led the way home. In 1975, Mike had just graduated high school and was looking for a more hands-on sort of job. The idea of sitting behind a desk didn't appeal to him, so he found himself a job in the Flathead National Forest in the Big Salmon Creek area trapping wildlife. In the autumn, Stevenson was joined by other workers who were out trapping large animals such as bears, elk, and deer, but Stevenson had been tasked with catching smaller animals like beavers. As the autumn drew to a close and winter began to set in, the other workers left the camp that had been set up at Big Salmon Creek, leaving Stevenson behind. The camp had been equipped with a wall tent to keep the cold weather out and to preserve the hay and grain, and the autumn workers agreed to leave the wall behind for Stevenson. According to him, the hay attracted rodents, which in turn attracted an owl who would sit on the wall and hoot well into the night. The owl stayed with the group, waiting each day for its catch before taking its position back on the wall. As the autumn workers and the hay left the camp, so did the owl, or at least Stevenson thought it had left. One cold November morning, Stevenson woke up and went about his day as normal, heading down to Big Salmon Lake to check his traps. As the day went on, the snow continued to fall, and soon Stevenson realized that he had lost his way. He told U.S. News, "It got to be late in the day when I was headed back to camp. The storm had dropped over a foot of fresh snow. About half a mile to a quarter mile from camp, it got too dark to see. I wasn't worried. I knew I was close to camp. I dug down in my pack for my flashlight, but it wasn't working. It was only my second winter back there, and I was still a rookie. I didn't have an extra bulb with me. I kept going and going, and I could not find that camp. I got completely mixed up, completely lost, and it was so discouraging because I knew the camp was so close." Stevenson continued to walk around, hoping to catch a glimpse of his camp, but he saw nothing. He kept moving to keep his body temperature up, but the cold quickly took over. Desperate, Stevenson prayed to God for help, and that's when he heard it. An owl hooting in the distance, the same hoot that he had heard hundreds of times at this camp. In a last-ditch attempt to save himself, he began following the direction of the hoots. Using the last of his strength, he followed the hoots as they changed direction abruptly, confusing him even more. Eventually, Stevenson came across his camp and was able to make a fire and get into his tent. The next morning, after the snow had settled, Stevenson retraced his steps and noticed that the direction of the hoots had changed because the owl had taken him around a large drop near Big Salmon Creek. Stevenson credits the owl for saving his life that night, saying that without its hoots, he surely would have perished in the elements. He also told U.S. News, "A few years back, I was transferred the right to keep a Blackfeet pipe. Through the pipe, through ceremony and talking with elders, I'm learning a little bit about the unseen in the natural world around us. I've learned that the Creator will sometimes send us help in unusual ways. That night, it came in the form of a medicine owl." Number 4. Woman sues California over Bigfoot. Crestline, California resident Claudia Ackley made headlines in 2018 when she announced that she was suing the state of California in the San Bernardino Superior Court for being derelict in their duty to acknowledge the existence of Bigfoot. On March 27, 2017, Claudia and her 2 children were hiking in the San Bernardino National Forest near Lake Arrowhead when they came across something bizarre. As dusk was rolling in, the trio was making their way through the winding paths when suddenly they froze in fear. In the distance, amongst the trees, they spotted a large, shadowy figure. Claudia was convinced that she and her daughters had just run into Bigfoot and ordered one of her daughters to pull out her phone and film it. She told the Press Enterprise, "He looked like a Neanderthal man, with hair all over him. He had solid black eyes. He had no expression on his face at all. He did not show his teeth. He just stared at the 3 of us. The three made a quick dash for safety, and while doing so, Claudia said that two other similar creatures ran off into the trees. The three left, and Claudia immediately reported what they had seen to the nearest forest ranger. The forest rangers insisted that Claudia had seen a bear and dismissed her claims. This enraged Claudia, who was a Bigfoot researcher and fanatic, so she decided to sue the state and claim that they were negligent in their duties to keep the public safe. She told the press enterprise, "People have to be warned about these things. They are big. We're totally vulnerable to these things." Claudia presented the video she took as evidence, along with a plaster mold of a Bigfoot footprint that she obtained from Washington State. She also claimed that she planned on presenting evidence from wildlife biologists, wilderness experience, and DNA evidence from a supposed Bigfoot hair sample. By March of 2018, the courts had dismissed Claudia's case after her legal team advised her to drop the lawsuit. She told the San Jose Mercury News, "The attorneys wanted me to stop it and then for them to rewrite it. I only get one chance and I must do it correctly in order to proceed." There have been no further updates, and it's unknown whether Claudia is going to proceed with her lawsuit in the future, but if we hear anything, we'll report it in a future episode.
My daughters were about 10, 20 feet behind me, and as I turn around, I'm looking straight, and I see the creature on that tree. So what I do is I continue walking closer to try to tell myself, am I seeing a shadow at tree stump? At that point, I see his head turn, so I know that I'm not looking at a shadow. And this is where I stop, and this is where everything pretty much happened. This is where my daughter videotaped from your angle to the tree right over here.
I swear to God. Mom?
I see it. Is it by the tree?
Yeah.
On the shoulder?
Yeah.
Whoop. I want to go home now. Did it move? Yes.
Mom?
He weighed about 800 pounds. He had hair all over him, orangutan color. He also did not show his teeth, but he had black solid eyes. And this is where he was at. My daughter saw two of them running at this point, where we have a 13-inch print in this area, and they run back here with the big guy. So there was a total of 3 Sasquatches that day. At that point, he started rocking back and forth, and that's when I knew it was time for us to go. So, okay, so then this is where his body weight was on that limb right there. As you can see. I didn't know my daughter was videotaping the creature as I was standing right here, face to face with him.
Number 3, Valley of the Headless Men. Hidden deep within the northwestern territories of Canada lies a national park that has picked up a disturbing reputation. The Nahanni National Park has earned the nickname of the Valley of the Headless Men, as amongst its sprawling natural beauty, it's rumored that men go missing and are found much later, but with their heads missing. The Nahanni National Park is only accessible by plane or boat and attracts some of the most hardcore hikers and explorers there are out there. The park gets its name from the Dene language, a group of indigenous people who live in the northwestern territories and the Arctic regions of Canada. Unfortunately, it has picked up another not-so-beautiful name in the last few centuries. The legend begins in 1927 with Raymond Patterson, a British explorer who received a chilling warning before he embarked on the adventure of a lifetime. Patterson was told, "Men vanish in that country, and down by the river, they say it's a damn good country to keep clear of." This warning came after Frank and Willie McLeod visited the park for the second time in 1905. The first time, they had made it out alive, but the second time around, they wouldn't be so lucky. When the brothers failed to return home, a search party was sent for them, and years later, their headless skeletal remains were found. This wouldn't be the last time that men would wander into the park, only to be found headless years later. Throughout the 20th century, intrepid explorers visited the park looking for gold and other resources, never to return. When the RCMP investigated their disappearances, they found their remains. These events led people to believe that the park was haunted, or that something supernatural was at play, and further events would solidify this belief. The RCMP were able to deduce that those who passed in the park likely did so either from exposure or at the hands of others, but this hasn't stopped the legend of the Valley of the Headless Men from living on. As if these incidents weren't enough to make Canadians think that Nahanni National Park was haunted, a spate of UFO sightings and mysterious plane crashes only added to their fears. The Dene people have spoken about the park for many centuries, passing down folk stories through the generations of monsters and unexplainable things in the park. Despite logical explanations existing for most of the bizarre goings-on, the Canadian people are still very wary of the park, and parts of the park itself have been closed off to the public. The official reasoning? Because parts of this park are important to indigenous communities, but some have postulated where the Park Service is trying to keep a lid on the unknown that lurks in the shadows of these trees. Number 2. Encounters with the Mantis Man. In July 2011, an interesting post titled Praying Mantis Sighting New Jersey popped up on the website phantomsmonsters.com. The author of the post, Lon Strickler, a friend of mine, explains how he received an email from a witness who claims to have come in contact with a bizarre praying mantis-like creature. The witness details how they were out fishing on the Musconetcong River in New Jersey, which is part of the National Park Service Wild and Scenic River System. When out of the corner of their eye, they saw something not entirely human. As they waded through the river, something to the left of them caught his attention. The witness described the creature as humanoid, tall, 6 feet at least, but possibly as tall as 6'6" to 7 feet. Triangular head, huge, slanted black eyes, just like a praying mantis. Its whole body was gangly, knobby, but you could still sense it was powerful. He explains how the creature had a grasshopper thigh, but was bent forward like a human. In a heart-stopping moment, the creature noticed him, and the two stared at each other before the creature slowly began to back away. Before the witness had time to react, the creature simply evaporated as it was moving away from him. Another witness account adding to the same post came from a person in Texas who also claimed to have seen something very similar. In December 2009, the witness was having a family get-together when members of their family came running into the room screaming that a plane had crashed into a nearby field. The witness and his brother ran to the field to see what was going on, and it was there that they experienced something they will never forget. The witness wrote, "We didn't see anything out of the ordinary, except a strange burning smell that smelled like burning mesquite. We didn't think anything of it since it was kind of nippy and someone could have been burning wood in their fireplace. We told them to show us where they saw the plane go down, and as we walked over to the place, they showed us. As the witness and the group moved closer to the spot, they felt an electrical charge in the air, followed by lights peeking through the trees. As they got closer to the lights, they saw that the lights were emanating from an oval-shaped object that was hovering a few feet off the ground." The witness wrote, "As we stood there in total shock, my brother next to me expressing his disbelief, we saw 2 strange-looking men appear from around the object. They at first didn't notice us. They were busy running around and gathering objects from the ground, from the trees. They didn't seem to notice us at first. They looked to be about the size of my oldest nephew, about 4 feet tall. But they looked very skinny, like they had no meat on their bones. Their heads were large and their arms were long, skinny, and hung down around their knees." According to the witness, the nephew shouted at them, which startled the creatures running around the shiny craft. The witness said, "That's when the creatures turned and noticed us. The sight of these creatures was something that will haunt me till the day I die. It turned and looked right at us. Its eyes were large, almost like the eyes of a praying mantis, except they were jet black and wrapped around its head. The 2 creatures looked at us for about 7 seconds, not an ounce of movement, before they calmly walked around the craft, one right after the other. They disappeared behind the craft, and we never saw them again." Other encounters with praying mantis-type creatures were also featured in the article. However, these 2 are the most prominent. Are these accounts proof of hybrid creatures living amongst us, or is there a scientific explanation for what these witnesses saw? Personally, I know a woman out here just across the river in Vancouver, Washington, who claims she saw a giant mantis standing on the street corner one night while she was out having a cigarette. She said it was almost as tall as the lamppost it was standing under. When she looked again, the creature had simply disappeared. Number 1. Woman killed by mysterious animal. 77-year-old Brenda Hamilton stepped out of her home in Pantego, North Carolina, near Pettigrew State Park, for what would be the final time. February 15, 2019, had started out like any other for Brenda. She went about her daily routine before leaving to go for a walk. Brenda was described as a pillar of the community. She was a school teacher at the Pungo Christian Academy, having been there since 1968. Everyone in Pantego knew her, and nobody had a bad word to say about her. So when she was discovered on the side of Indian Run Road, everyone was in shock. According to reports, Brenda was badly wounded and had to be transferred to the nearest hospital. Unfortunately, her injuries were too severe, and Brenda passed away shortly after being admitted.
We've learned that a teacher attacked this past Friday by an animal has died of her injuries. 77-year-old Brenda Hamilton of Pantego was attacked by an animal on Indian Run Road around 5:47 a.m., according to the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. Hamilton is listed as an English teacher at Pungo Christian Academy on the school's website. Biologists with the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission performed some preliminary DNA tests and have eliminated the possibility that any wild animals indigenous to the area were involved in the attack, the sheriff's office said. Deputies are continuing to investigate to determine if any domestic dogs in the area could have attacked Hamilton.
News reports quickly sprang up about Brenda's passing, with the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office announcing that they were unable to determine exactly what animal had caused her wounds. DNA samples were taken from Brenda and submitted for testing, but the announcement by the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office left local residents fearful. Was there a mysterious and unknown animal lurking in the woods, or was there a reasonable explanation behind this? 2 long years later, the University of Florida, who partnered with the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office, announced that DNA testing had finally revealed the animal responsible for Brenda's injuries. In a statement to WECT Channel 6 News, Anne-Marie Clark of the University of Florida Forensic Program said, evidence suggested that it was a domestic dog and there was no indication of gray or red wolf, coyote, or fox. It also suggests there was no bear or large cat, such as a bobcat or a panther. Anne-Marie also surmised that multiple dogs had attacked Brenda, finally putting to bed the rumors that a dangerous and mysterious creature lurked in the woods around Pantego, North Carolina. Well, friends, there you have it. What do you think of these unusual stories? I look forward to your comments, but as always, please be respectful and friendly. Before I go, I want to remind everyone that all 3 volumes of my books, National Park Mysteries and Disappearances, are available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle format. If you enjoy our work here on the channel, you'll love these books. Your purchases directly help the channel and help fund and improve future content. Links to all 3 books can be found in the description box below. With that said, take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you a little farther on down the trail. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time.